But I'm very, very, very proud of being a nanny right now. I'm very proud. I can say it. And for years I couldn't say. I was like, yeah, I'm doing it part time. I'm a graphic designer, but I'm a nanny like part time.
Hmm.
I was afraid of how people were gonna judge me for being a nanny and not being another profession. But now I'm like, I don't care. I don't know if it comes with age or if it comes with um, all the social media that opened my eyes and said like, oh, there's a world of professional nannies there too. Like I'm not the only one. And like I met really good nannies throughout these years, but we never talk about education. We never talk about how to become better. And I had to figure out my way. And I'm sure they were doing the same thing. But now I know, and I'm proud, and I'm very excited about being a nanny.
Awesome.
I love that.
Mhm. We had
Anybody
Elsa.
else?
We
I
had,
saw
Oh,
Lily.
Elsa pop on.
Yeah,
Lali,
Robin.
Lali she left?
No,
No,
Lolly.
I'm here. I'm here. Yes, I
Okay.
want to share. I want to
Yeah.
say I feel very grateful because I don't know the family who I used to work. They taught me to be a nanny, and they make me feel loved too. So I was, and plus I'm a massage therapist and I work with energy. So I believe in
Mm.
the energy. And when I have the newborn and I didn't know what to do, like I didn't have any experience. And then slowly everything started growing on my hands, and the parents slowly taught me, oh, do this, do that. And then I was like, oh, I can do that. And I love to do that. So I'm grateful about my job and with the people I used to work. So I learned a lot in 18 years. And that's what I want to explore more about, because I know this is not it. I know it's more you can give it to the kids, and show them. And it doesn't matter. Of course, it will be so excited to see when they are 20 or they get married and they have kids, but it doesn't matter. Right now, I really enjoy when they tell you thank you or love you, or they doing something you taught them. That's what I'm
Yeah.
grateful.
I love that. I know. it is hard. Like you're like you put in all this work for all these years and you're like, what's gonna happen later? Like, because some families you keep in touch with, but some like you don't. And you're like, I wonder what happened to that kid. Or sometimes they randomly friend you on Facebook and I'm like, you have a lot of tattoos. Oh, okay. That has happened to me twice. Like one girl, I was like, oh, that's you. Cool. I knew you when you were
Wow.
11. You look different. But it's nice, like a little pop in.
Uh,
So
had, oh, sorry. I was just
oh
gonna
no,
say
go
I've had
ahead.
like a long-term family. All of my jobs have been the longest was 4 years. And so
Hmm.
I always tell families like I know that I have an impact on these kids, but I'm not gonna see it and they're not gonna remember me. And they're, oh no, we will, they will. I'm like, it's okay. Like they're usually
Right,
2, 3 years old, and I know that my impact is subconscious, I guess. And
right.
or laying foundations, helping the families get the right start in their parenting and stuff. It's not really about seeing the kids grow long term. At least it hasn't been for me yet. But I ran into one of my first families the other day at the Y, and the little girl, she's about 8 now, and she ran up to me and wanted a hug, and I was like, there's
Oh,
no way you remember me. And her dad was like, yes, she does. She talks about you. They have their little photo album and stuff.
oh, I love that. That's sweet.
Crazy.
Because at that age, it is hard to know.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
then the
last
parents always
year,
do this thing where they're
two and a
like,
half.
you remember this person, and you're like, it's okay if they don't. It's really
Right,
okay.
right.
So in our first section, one of the things I was going to talk about, I'm really glad that Ellie used her word as proud or pride, because I think that that is something, and all of us on this call have been nannies for a long time. So we've all had probably varying experiences with what it's like to make the choice that this is going to be your career, whether you fell into it or like you started out knowing you wanted to do it, because I absolutely fell into it. Like when I was in college, all my friends worked at the mall, and I was like, I cannot be a retail person. That is not for me. So let me get an after school nanny job. Me and the kids can do our homework at the same time. And then that just sort of like morphed into like, oh, over the summer I'll nanny. And then it became like, oh, no, I like this. And then I was like, that's actually what ended up. So I went to school to become a high school teacher. And then I started doing field work and I was like, no, I don't want to do that. But teaching or being a nanny and like my feelings about it is actually what pushed me into the early childhood classroom because I got a lot of feedback like, oh, like I was like one of those nerdy people that like when I would go home for the summer, I would like go visit my high school teachers. I was like such a nerd in high school. And one of my teachers who was really influential, I told her, I'm thinking about changing my major to early childhood education. And I remember her saying to me, don't you at least want to do elementary? Like, you really just want to like work with little kids? Like, and I think sometimes this happens, people, how would you say this? Like, they really have good intentions and they're like, you can do so much more. And it's like, but I'm telling you what I want to do. And so I got a lot of outside influence like that when I was starting to like nanny more. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll teach because somehow that's more respectable, even though I make less money, in some ways have less of an impact and have a terrible work-life balance. I'll do that because it seems more like legit or like more respectable. So one of the questions I had written down was, has there ever been a time that you've used the phrase specifically, I'm just a nanny?
Not just, no.
Good. I love that because I can admit it. I've been like, oh, I'm just a nanny. I don't do that anymore. I'm like, girl, please. I'm a whole ass nanny is what I typically say. But like, no, there was definitely a time in like when my career was first starting that I didn't know how to articulate that. And everybody comes at being a nanny from a different place and there's different baggage for different people. Like I am a parent. I'm absolutely not a parent. My God. Being a parent is great for other people, just not me. I am a child of two Black Southern parents. And there was a lot of weight choosing to do a career that we were relegated to do for a long time, right? Like my uncle, I remember I was like maybe like 21, and my uncle made a joke and he was like, oh, so you're a mammy? And I was like, whoa. And if you're not like familiar with the negative connotations of the word mammy, it's like the slave word for a Black nanny. And like that's my family saying that to me, right? So like you're getting it societally, you're getting from your family. I lived in DC and had friends, like my best friend spent time working in the Biden administration. Like they work for big corporations. And then I'm like, we're out at a club and all the guys are like, oh, what do you do? Like, oh, I work for Deloitte. I work for the White House. I work on the Hill. I'm like, I'm a nanny. And they're like, oh, so you babysit? Like, do you have a real job?
You're supposed to say, I support some of the most important people in this city.
Which, thank you for saying that, Maya, because I have seen whole threads on Reddit, on Facebook, like, what do you, it happens a lot around dating, honestly. People say, what do you write on your dating profile or what do you tell people that you're potentially dating that you do for work? And I'm like, I'm not going to lie because what's the point of that? And I don't like, there was probably a time in my life that I specifically said, I'm in childcare because for me now, much like Ellie, like I feel really proud to be a nanny. And it's not like, if you don't get it, you don't get it. Like that's fine. Like if you don't understand the breadth of my job, that's okay. Like it's not always my job to explain it to you. But I do think it's really important. And this is also kind of, I'll admit, this point is a little bit lost on all of us here because we are career nannies and have been doing this for a really long time. But I do find a lot of younger nannies will lead with sort of what like Ellie said. Well, I also do this, but I also nanny. And that's fine because I've met a lot of people in Nashville specifically who really are like nannying for the time being because they're trying to do music or do something else. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like for some people, that's just what nannying is going to be in their life, which is why this session is specifically about career nannying and not just, I want to do this for a year or two after college or during college. Right. But it is really important to have that sense of pride. And a big way to do that is to surround yourself with people who know the value of your work and agree with the value of your work and are, like Lolly says, like always wanting to learn and like grow and help, help themselves, help the families, because that's what you do in a regular career, right? Like, and I'm always telling nannies, like, demand the same things that your corporate friends demand. Maybe they look a little bit different, but like I asked my boss to have like quarterly sit down meetings. Sometimes we like miss them, but like absolutely twice a year we sit down and like talk about expectations, talk about what's going on, because that's what a career does. Like if you're in a corporate office, you have reviews. If if you work at a school, you have reviews. You get, I don't want to say judged, that's not the right word, but like you get feedback on your performance, and you deserve this because you are a professional. Um, and also nannying can be really hard because so much of what we do is invisible labor, right? Like a lot of our labor goes unnoticed until something goes wrong. Like if the kids are happy, the house is clean, everything's going on. Sometimes you have really effusive bosses that will say thank you a lot, but like a lot of times it's just like, this is our normal. So if one thing sort of gets out of whack, then your labor is noticed because it was like missing labor, right? So that can also be really hard too, and really hard to, I mean, a lot of people get bonuses at the end of the year, right? But like we don't have those same like opportunities for recognition or accolades or awards in the same way that a lot of other professions do. And so it can be really hard to do this very, very important work that is also very invisible. So I feel like we're all really like on it about this, but I just encourage you to remember like that this is a profession you can be proud of. Because like, let's be honest, thinking about where we are in our careers, I think the shortest person I heard on here was Carly and said 10 years, which is still an incredibly long time to be in one profession, one career, right?
Yeah.
A lot of us are out earning our corporate peers. A lot of, like there's not only value in work that's in an office. And I think that is really important to remember. And I won't go all on my feminist soapbox, but like also this is women's work and people don't value it. And so you have to teach people how to value you. And like, I feel like that does feel like a lot to take on. Like you're already trying to live your life, raise other people's kids, and now you have to teach people to respect you. Like it's a bridge too far, right? But we keep doing it, and we keep showing up to things like this. We keep showing up to things like National Nanny Training Day, and that visibility and being a part of that community really does make a difference.
I saw this quote, I think it was from the Nanny Institute, maybe the Modern Nanny posted it or something, but it said something like, being a nanny is not unskilled work, but it's a zero entry field or something like that, meaning that anyone
yes.
can do it to begin with, but
Mm-hmm.
it is actually skilled labor. And, for me, part of my pride in being a nanny has been working on professional development opportunities and training days. And I've been presenting workshops. And I think that has shown me that being a career nanny is about more than, I mean, I do think I do skilled work, every day with the children, but I need a little bit more. And so for me, that's been, these kinds of opportunities, just continuing to learn and have a lot of community with other people in the field, and everybody sharing, what they know. It makes it feel like more important work to me, but.
No, that makes sense. And I think I saw that same post. And I think that has always been the case, but really like ramped up during COVID because a lot of parents, the daycares were closed. And so anybody could call themselves a nanny. And I always try to be cautious when I talk about things like this, because just because you haven't done a job doesn't mean that you won't be good at it or you're not fit for it. But if all of your background is, I don't know, babysitting your cousins, twice a year, and we are competing for jobs, it does make the waters of the market a little murky, right? And I think that when you put in the effort to do professional development, to have a community, to know not only about child development, but like children's activities, specifically children's activities in your area, that is a value add to families, because it's not just about playing with a kid, right? Like I love babysitting jobs because then I can just go and play with a kid and eat some pizza and be done.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would never go to someone's house on a Saturday night like, I'm your nanny. Absolutely not. I do that all week. And there's nothing wrong with babysitting, right? But the difference comes when you have a different skill set, because it's not skilled work in the sense that like I have to learn to be a plumber, but are an infinite amount of skills that not only you have to have, but that you don't necessarily get formal training for, because whether you like it or not, sometimes you're a therapist, sometimes you're a nurse, sometimes you're playing all of these roles at any given time with different families, right? And every time we move on from a family, you have to learn a whole new set of people, a whole new set of, communication. And, do you ever see those posts that are like, if a stay-at-home mom got paid for all the jobs she did, she'd make, $500,000 a year or whatever. And people like it's a tricky comparison because we do get paid, right? But
Mm-hmm.
like sometimes when I'm talking about my job, I say, oh, it's kind of like I'm a paid stay-at-home mom, right? Because in some ways it is. And if you were getting paid for all the things you did every day, you're teaching, you're cleaning, some people are cooking, you're driving, you not only do you look at that like these are things I could be getting paid for separately, but they're all different skills, which is why, this is actually a whole other workshop I'm working on for next year about family assistant jobs, because I have a lot of beef with the family assistant job description in our industry right now. Because not one person should not be doing every single thing. And most people aren't good at doing every single thing. And I thought about it because people talk about cooking all the time. Not everybody's a good cook. And not everybody cooks the food you like. I run into that with my bosses. I'm like, this is what I like to cook. So teach the kids to eat it or don't, or hire someone else to cook because I'm tired of this. I mean, obviously, I say it much nicer than that and we make a compromise, blah, blah, blah. But though my cooking is a skill, right? It's a skill that I have. Being able to get the kids out of the house on time is a skill. And it's not necessarily a quantifiable skill that you can check off on a performance review, but your kids don't get to their after school activities or whatever by happenstance. You
But
do
and
that.
here's why you're not paid to be a stay-at-home mom. You have 25 years of experience raising however many children that you've raised,
Right.
to mention formal classes in child development. You're not going to find very many stay-at-home moms that have raised as many children. I counted like 350 children that I've cared for in my career, I mean, in classrooms
Right.
and as a nanny. And and my bachelor's degree in early childhood education. And, so we may be doing the work of a stay-at-home mom, but we're coming with expertise that gives us
Right.
skills to do it, with more expertise.
Right. Which is why it's important to recognize that there are skills. Like it's not just because I remember one time I was thinking, like, man, I've been so lucky. All of the kids that I've ever taken care of are really good sleepers. That's impossible. That is an
No,
impossible amount of luck. And this was
right.
like some years ago. And it was such a silly moment, but it really struck me like that didn't just happen family after family after family. That's a skill set you have. And like, I'm literally sitting here telling you, appreciate your skills. But I also can say, I have moments in my career where I'm like, girl, that just happened. And it's like, no, it didn't. Like
Right.
you made it happen because you've been making it happen for 2 decades for multiple families. So it's just important, especially on days that are hard. Because some days you're at work and you're just like, what is happening? And the day will end, you'll have another day, but you like those are the moments that you pull from that experience and say, everyone's just having an off day. I can have an off day, the kids can have an off day, but that doesn't diminish the skill set that I have that makes me successful in this career. Um, so ouch, sorry, I'm
I
like
feel like nowadays, it's getting harder to be anything, a mom or anybody taking care of kids because of the expectations of like,
mm-hmm,
oh, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to know everything. And it's
mm-hmm,
like that it makes me really excited. Oh yeah, I can learn this, I can learn that. But it's like there's only so much you can do because you have the ability to do it, and some things come easy to you, and like you can do it or you can learn it, but you can't do everything perfect. So
right,
I feel like moms feel the guilt of many things, and they're like stressed out because they can't keep up with all the things that are out out there for you, all the information and all that. And I feel like it's getting to me like I want to learn this, I want to do that, I want to, I want to do everything. And then I'm like, no, Andy, just do one thing at a time, do it right,
Right.
like stick to it. And then if you do that, you're gonna be fine. Like you can't do everything perfect. And social media and all the
Mm-hmm.
being like, as proud as I am to being a nanny now and finding more professional nannies, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to keep up too. But at the same time, I'm like, no, relax. Like, okay, you just found out all these things. You can't, it's not gonna be like, oh yeah, I gotta learn everything. I gotta go to school. I gotta go to every training. No, like you,
Mm-hmm.
one thing at a time too, I
But
feel
just
It's
like
true.
that's
I think
another
the
thing
thing
that,
I think the thing that separates a career nanny from not is the drive, the interest in
mhm.
continuing to
Mm-hmm.
learn and
Yeah,
build your skills. That
Yeah,
it,
that's
yeah,
I
but
know
true.
that,
also
I've
like
known
you
I've
can't
known
keep up
nannies
with
that have been.
everything, all the trends and all the, not trends, but all
Oh
the
no,
new
yeah,
I mean,
information,
some of it is
like,
trends.
it
well,
is.
some are.
But I'm
But
saying,
like,
like, just the fact that you want to or that you have any interest. I've known nannies that have been doing it for 20 years and have never tried to do anything different and will defend their old
yeah.
ways tooth and nail and
Mm-hmm.
refuse to change or grow,
Yeah.
you know.
Hmm.
So,
And those are the
yeah.
people who are miserable at their job because,
They
people
are. And they
will
never want to
talk.
ask for raises. They
Yeah.
never want
Oh,
to
I
do
have that's in the next
anything.
section about asking for raises. And
I
it's
knew
like,
one
but
But in
that,
the same time, the families, they don't know the difference between nanny, and I didn't know before, but between nanny and babysitting. No, because I hired a babysitter this last weekend, and they didn't do anything, and they charged me, just to say something, $10, no, and they do almost the same you do. So excuse me, no, uh,
you're like, no.
uh, yes, they were here couple hours, maybe when your baby was ready to go sleep. What else they need to do? But what is the difference? I'm coming every day from 8 to 5, 8 to 4. No, all teaching them all the whole routine. No, okay, well, but they don't know the difference between nanny and babysitter. No,
That is very true. Their expectations are all over the place. And that is one of those things that, like, my best friend has worked in corporate forever, so she's always teaching me corporate phrases. That's called managing up, where it's your job as the employee to teach your manager like what they need to know. And as much as I hate having to do this, because I also really want, and I have like a meeting of the minds planned for the local agencies for next year, because I'm like, look, y'all, we need to talk about it. Because y'all will say that you support us and that you want to do all these things,
Hmm.
but then we meet these parents, and those can't be the expectations that you discuss with me, because I don't know what they're asking about. So this is an example of how the Nashville nanny community will begin managing up to both their families and the agencies, because they don't know the difference, or they just think, oh, well, we'll have somebody, especially for people asking for part-time nannies, they'll be like, oh, it's just like babysitting. We just want you to come from 9 to 4, 3 days a week. I'm like, that's
that's a
okay.
nanny.
Technically, it's part-time, sure. But that's not just random babysitting. You're not asking for a babysitter.
That's
If
an
you have a
investment
couple
in
people,
the family.
right? If you have a couple people on rotation doing that every week, okay, maybe those could be babysitters. But we do really struggle with having people understand what the true role of a nanny is, the true role of a family assistant. Because these people, if you're like in a position like I am, or like I don't know if Carly does any family assistant work, but like you're growing with a family and they have a new baby, that's like
Yeah.
a negotiation you have about like what remains of family assistant work when the baby comes. But like,
Mhm.
I see all of these ads all the time that are like, I want a nanny slash family assistant for my 3 month old, and I want someone to cook and clean. And I'm like, girl, you have a newborn baby. You
Hmm.
should want to hire someone to take care of your newborn baby right now.
Yeah.
But I will, that's a conversation for a different session. But I have very strong feelings about that, because they don't, you're right, Ollie, they don't know, and they make assumptions, and those assumptions affect, honestly, how they want to pay us. And that is really frustrating. And also leads directly into my next section. about sustainability. So where's my little paper? Hold on. Okay, sustainability. Okay, bear with me while I try to figure out how to share my screen. Sometimes I feel like I'm 100 years old. All right, present. I haven't pressed share screen yet, so I know you can't see it. Oh, I have to do it like this. Okay. Sorry. I even practiced this last night. How embarrassing. Okay.
I would not even attempt it, so you're good.
Okay, share. Canva. Okay.
Very
How do I make it?
nice.
Okay, make
Oh,
it
good job.
big. Okay, I did it.
Yay!
All right. So this is just a little checklist I made. I did all that rigmarole for like a 5-point checklist, but it's fine. Okay. So
You're
is your
building it.
job sustainable? These are just like the top 5 things that I think of for sustainability. Obviously, it's number 2 on this list, but market rate pay, which is honestly a little bit of a loaded phrase, right? Like, what is market rate? Because what we think is market rate is not necessarily what parents think is market rate, et cetera, et cetera. But right. So is your job sustainable? Does it have clear boundaries? And boundaries come from both parties, right? Like, I've seen people say, oh, like I just struggle so much to be on time for work and my bosses are always mad. That's a legitimate boundary that your boss can have. You need to be on time for work, right? Um, but you can also have boundaries. I have an off time. I need you to be home so I can leave on time. Market rate pay. We'll talk a little bit about pay momentarily. Time off and a realistic schedule. And realistic looks different for everyone, right? A lot of people gasped when Sarah said she works 60 hours a week. Like, it's a lot of work. But, and also, I don't know if this is my best example because Sarah has said she is exhausted. That was her word that described her career right now. And it's also important to remember that when you're going into a job that you're going to stay at for a while, what feels realistic about your schedule at the beginning might not feel the same in a year or 2 years because we're people. We're like, I say this all the time, like it's some sort of revelation, but like we're human beings who can change and have different needs. So making sure that your schedule is realistic when it starts and that it remains realistic as your life changes. And time off, of course, because time off is very important. And I feel like, given the intros we did, all of us have PTO, but if you don't, stay back on the meeting. We're going to talk about it. Emotional support / community. Not everybody is a community person. I get that. I am always like community, community, community all the time. Because I think it's important. I think it's important to be able to like converse with people who know exactly what you're going through. But sometimes, excuse me, people feel more comfortable talking to their siblings, their spouses, their best friends, but you need to have someone who is going to really hear you. And I think that that is important, not just, oh, she's had a bad day, like let her just get it off her chest, but like someone who can really support you because nanny parent relationships are very intimate and that makes everything that happens at work feel harder. So you really do need that emotional support and room for growth. And growth can look like a lot of different things. It can look like only wanting to be with families who potentially want to grow their family. It can look like, you know, changing, like if you want to stay long term with a family until they're in elementary school or beyond, are they looking for someone to do house management or family assistant work, or what that can look like? I know a couple nannies who have like pivoted and started working for their bosses' businesses or become a personal assistant as the kids have gotten older. Those are the things, for me, sort of the top things that make a job sustainable. And how many of you feel like you have at least 3 of those things in your current job? Good, good. You can just raise your hand. You don't have to say good. Oh, sorry for interrupting your water picking, Carly. Thank you for the thumbs up. Now that we know what you're doing back there. And again, like I said, after everyone did their intro, I sort of assumed that we would all kind of be there. But I also feel like I come across a lot of nannies who don't. Until I moved here, honestly, I had never met a nanny that didn't get PTO. And it like blew my mind. And that's not even getting into whether or not your bosses give you guaranteed hours or all of those things. But I was like, but like, what do you mean if you like,
You can't take a day off and have a
like,
break.
I'm literally like, even now, like, I'm dumbfounded because it's like, what do you mean? Like, I always also try to remind people, do not take a job that your employer wouldn't take. Your employer would never take a job where they didn't get paid if the company was closed or that didn't give them any time off because they expect to be treated like an adult human being. And you
Mhm.
should have the same very basic expectation for yourself. You cannot pour from an empty well, as they always say, like, you have to take care of yourself, you know? And I say that with full transparency. I was talking to my friend today because I took a sick day yesterday because I like have some stuff going on and I wasn't really that much better today. But my boss is 11 million weeks pregnant and like giving birth in like, I think we're 3.5 weeks away from the baby coming. Both of my bosses are doctors with call schedules. And, you know, I'm always telling people, take your sick time, take your PTO, take it without guilt. And I said to my friend today, like, I'm setting up for this presentation and I feel like a fraud because I should have stayed home today. But I felt bad because I knew both of them had a like a converging call schedule today and the kids had an activity. So I felt like I needed to be there, right? So I just say that to say that we are all human and there are going to be moments where like you walk back on some of your boundaries for good reasons, right? But those are personal choices that you make. That's a personal choice I made today. But also, I should add that my kids are at school all day. So I wasn't like actively with toddlers all day long suffering. Like I was only with them in the morning and the afternoon. Yes, Ellie.
I have like an idea because I
Yes.
feel I feel like really bad all week, and I was in the same situation, but I was like, they're moving, the mom, they need my help, whatever. It's not like anything anybody is pregnant, but I was like, but I'm like, job is like, I'm like showing up, but I want to tell them that I'm not 100% so they don't have this big
Mm-hmm.
expectations. But I feel like, no, I can't say that because like,
Yeah.
like how can but I'm a human, right? So now
Yeah.
that you're talking about that, like I'm like, we should say that, I'm here, I'm showing up, I feel like crap, but I'm here because I know you're having a hard week and like I don't know, you're pregnant, whatever. And but I feel like crap. So if I'm not like 100% or like you used to see me or you like you're respecting, I'm sorry, but I could like take a day off or come here. What do you want?
Right.
Like because I can't like I know some parents can understand that and they even tell the nanny, okay, take 2 hour break or just help me this 3 hours. But like
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's kind of hard to say, and I hear you telling that. And it's like we should be like able to be honest about that. Like I'm a human. I could be at work. I mean, I could be at my house taking a day off, or I can be here, maybe like giving you 50% of what I normally give you.
Right.
I
Right?
think you have to like reassure yourself of the whole picture of you as a professional nanny and how
Hmm.
much you
Mm-hmm.
have been there for them consistently for however many years you have been. And say, if we don't have the kind of relationship where I can admit that I'm not 100% after how much I've shown up for you and how consistent I've been, then this isn't a good situation in the first place.
Right.
The
And
trust.
truthfully, it doesn't even usually need to get to that conversation because a lot of this is in our head. And I think that over the years, I have realized that nannying is isolating in a lot of ways, but one of them is because we don't have coworkers and not just for the social aspect, but because there is no one to pick up the slack. If you don't come into the office, Bob and Jim and Sally can work together and finish your part of the report. But it's
Hmm.
just you, and people are depending on you, and people are depending on the people who are depending on you. So it feels like a ripple effect. And I mean, I'm not speaking for everyone. For me, that's what it feels like, especially right now working with doctors. Like, if we are not in sync and they get the kids, like, I hate being at the doctor's office and I'm waiting for like 30 minutes, right? And I'm like, what is going on? And sometimes I'm like, maybe her nanny was late and she couldn't get out of the house. And so now she's late and now I'm late and now it's ruining everybody in this office's day, right? Like, also, I'm cuckoo. So that's where my brain goes sometimes, right? But I do think that there's a lot of pressure because there's no one to pick up the slack for you.
Well,
And
that's where backup care comes in. And I just had that conversation with my bosses the other day because I was saying, I have this date that's coming up. I'm going to need to be out. Oh, we were going to do it. I'm like, we really need to have, I said, you're going off maternity leave now. You're going to be working a lot. And I need to be able to be sick. I need to be able to be out and not worry
yeah,
that you don't have anyone to cover you. And she's like,
yeah,
I know. I need to get on that. But
yeah. Because it is really hard and you don't want to feel guilty all the time. And again, like I said, it can be situational. Like Ellie was saying, her family's moving, and like I know my bosses have a lot going on. This is not something I would do a lot. And if this continues, I will be taking more time off. But I do know that there are a lot of people that struggle with that and will put themselves last repeatedly. And that creates a non sustainable career. You cannot wear yourself to the bone for someone else. Like you just can't. And it's not to say that all employers are, careless or whatever, but truthfully, and I'm not even saying that this has happened to me, but just truthfully, like this is a transactional relationship and you can't beat yourself down for someone that if they don't need you in 3 months will let you go.
that's right.
Because now you've ruined yourself, you're exhausted, you can't even present to the next family like a whole put together person. So being able to have like good communication with your employers but also with yourself, like I live alone also, which is part of this. I do a lot of self-talking honestly out loud because I need to work things out in my brain sometimes, and sometimes I have to give myself a verbal out loud reminder of things in my life. And sometimes that thing is like, you are working a lot. Like the other day, I was like, oh, I was carrying these bins upstairs because we're bringing all the newborn stuff up. And I was like out of breath. And I was like, I just need a minute. And then I like stood there for a couple minutes and I was like, I've done X amount of laundry today. I've cooked 2 meals. I've reorganized the playroom. I'm like, that's a lot of work in one day. Sit down. And I had like 3 or 4 more things on my list. And I was like, all of these things will be there tomorrow. And none of them are time sensitive. And this will be part of my family assistant presentation, so I won't go into it. But like parents with a never ending to do list make me crazy because when I think sometimes when there's not kids in the household full time, you are less valued for your skill set. And at that moment, you become like production based. So it's like, because I see nannies all the time say, my boss acts like they feel weird if they see me sitting down. Why? I sit down all the time at work because first of all, I like there's no valor in hustling around all the time. That's why my boss and I every Monday we have like a sit down and we used to just like talk about stuff and then I had to like manage up and steer her to give me a layout of the week because on Thursday I don't want you to tell me a time sensitive thing that's going to take me all day when I could have broken it up throughout the whole week.
Right.
That was a tangent. I can't remember why I was telling you all that. Just take it for what it is. It'll come back to me. It'll come back to me. But yes, sustainability includes being able to take breaks when you need to, not just taking time off, take breaks, but sit down and eat your lunch every day. Mm-hmm. This is a message to myself. Look, I'm recording this meeting. I'm going to play this back and tell myself, sit down and eat your lunch every day. Because when I did a lot of family assisting stuff when I had my long-term family. I had a nanny share that I was with them for 13 years. And so the girls grew up and got sassy and whatever, so they would just tell me about myself all the time. And some days I'd pick them up from school and they'd be like, Ashley, did you even eat lunch today? And I'd be like, no, I didn't. They're like, we can tell you're grumpy, you're hangry. And I'm like, I am. And there's no real reason. It's not like I'm like changing diapers or whatever. There's no reason that I can't stop what I'm doing in a child-free home, or even if there are kids there. Mm-hmm. Put them in a bouncer if you have an infant. Like there is a time in the day, even if you have a kid that never naps, you deserve 15, 20, 30 minutes minimum to just take a breath and reset your brain, because that's what's going to make your job feel sustainable. My other, thing about sustainability is workload. And it's always important to make sure that your workload matches the pay that they're giving you and not the other way around. Because I think a lot of nannies get enticed by a number that they think is high. And then it kind of gets in this weird space where parents are like, oh, well, we pay you this much, so this is what you do for this much money. Rather than saying, here are our expectations, and this is what we pay for those expectations. Because I know several people who've gotten into this weird space where they'll say, well, they're paying me so much, so I feel like I have to do it. You don't. If they didn't outline it for you, you don't. And I always try to explain to people that like a contract is a living, breathing document that can be updated. It's not like you just write it one time. Because if all of a sudden you have 7 extra tasks that are expected of you on a regular basis, you are no longer being paid for the workload that they gave you. You are just working extra and you're not getting paid for it. Um,
And
and
I
that
would
is
say this triggers in me the thought that sometimes I beat myself up because as a career nanny, I should have this amazing contract, right, with every family where I've got, the professional development stipend and health insurance and the this and the all these perks, right, that you see. I get like contract envy. And then I think back about how respectful all of my families have been of me and my time and appreciate the work that I do and appreciate that I take breaks. And I haven't had any families that were abusive or mean or disrespectful in any way. And I'm like, that's so much more important than
yeah.
finding the family that's going to give me all of these financial perks and, tons
And
of
I,
time.
I think it's because you've been like, very respectful in putting the limits. That's another thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're speaking up right on time when something's
Yeah.
going on. You say, "Excuse me," like not in a bad way, but before, like I don't know, like a lot of Latinas, we like keep it, and then like we don't speak out until like we're super super mad at the people. We talk to our friends about our bosses, but we don't talk to them, and that's the problem, and then we quit.
Yeah.
And that's, I'm
Yeah.
like, well, you didn't solve anything. Now you're jobless,
Now you
and
have
you
to start
didn't learn
over
how
and
to
have the
talk to
same.
your,
Yeah.
you didn't know how to set, like put your limits, and now you're
Mm-hmm.
more upset because
Right.
you think they're like, ogres, and I don't know. But that's pretty much because you've done that, Maya, that you've done the
I
work.
guess so. But also, I've just been really lucky. Like the other day, I was looking at my contract for some reason, and I saw that I was supposed to be getting time and a half for federal holidays that I work. Like I get double pay if I work like Christmas Day or, the listed holidays that I have off. But if there's these random ones like Veterans Day, Columbus Day, and I work them, I'm supposed to be getting time and a half. And I didn't even realize that was in my contract. And I went to go say something to my boss. I had to like work up the nerve to discuss my pay. And she's like, I've been paying you time and a half for federal. And she's like, I'm on it. And I looked and I just hadn't been checking my pay stubs. And she totally, I mean, I've just gotten really lucky with families that I've never had any issue. So
I don't think you will stay with the family during the interview if you sense that something's not going to work out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of the, not being lucky. It's just like you see the red,
Right. It's
you see the
experience,
red
right? It's
flag.
discernment. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've been with enough people, and even if you haven't had a ton of jobs, which is why I always encourage newer nannies to be a part of these kinds of discussions, because maybe you've only done a few interviews because you haven't been a nanny for that long, but
Mhm.
talking to other people can clue you in on to things that are red flags, right? Because there are some red flags that people don't know, and it is really good to have other people's perspective. And also remembering that like what's a red flag for some people isn't, right? Like in terms of schedule, like I work for 2 doctors, so I know a lot of people wouldn't take my job because I don't have like an end time,
off time.
right? Like I have
I
a
would,
general-ish
I could
end
not do
time,
that.
but it's,
Yeah.
it's sometimes I get to leave early, rarely, but sometimes, right? But sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, I have an emergency C-section right now and Kobe is on hospital call. We will be home as soon as we can. But like I knew that going into it. And do I think that's going to be sustainable forever? No. It never feels sustainable in the winter when it's been nighttime since like 4:30. I'm like, why aren't you home already? And I'm like, oh, it's only 4:30. Okay. But like, you know, so what is sustainable for someone may not be sustainable for someone else. And what's, a red flag to someone may not be a red flag for someone else, but it's good to be a part of these conversations so you can say, oh, I've never, like Maya saying, I've never even had a family treat me like XYZ, right? But now you know that there are people out there who are like that. So obviously you'll avoid it. And you
Right.
can share your experience with people who have been in that situation. Say, girl, I sit down at work all the time. You do not have to live like that. And one of the questions I had, or like one of the like thought prompts or whatever I had was, that is the wrong, girl, I almost asked the wrong question. I'm in the wrong part of my note. I'm doing great. I told her I wasn't 100%, but I'm still here. Isn't that what Ellie said to say? I'm giving you my best and I'm not 100%.
You're doing
Thank you.
great.
Thank you.
You're
You
doing
did
great.
great.
No, sitting down on my couch doing this is way easier than what I was doing at work today. But the question is it like, because some people only like to be at their job for a year. I've met a lot of people who are like, I only like infants. After a year and a half, I'm out. But if you are interested in having a long-term job, if nothing about your job changed in the next 2 to 3 years, would you be able to like ride it out with zero resentment? Sarah, I see your head. You're like, right? So that's a clue to you that, I mean, I know you already know this, that there are at least some parts of your job that are not sustainable. And then you have a choice, right? Sarah, I'm not like telling your business, I hope, but Sarah has things that she's going to be talking to her bosses about to alleviate some of those things that make her job feel unsustainable. So I say that to say the answer to an unsustainable job isn't always to leave. Because sometimes, and I think a lot of nannies are perfectionists, you will be half dead, but you will complete the to-do list. The kids will be happy, the house will be clean, everything's going well. So sometimes you have to tell people that you're struggling, whether it's that you haven't been feeling well during the week, or that, yes, I'm getting these things done, but I'm burnt out, which is another section I have. Because a lot of times parents don't know, and not because they don't care about you or whatever. People are just people, and they're in their own head about what they have to do, and they have to go to work and, try to be with their kids after work and all of those things. So they see completion, they see happy kids, they see everything getting done. So sometimes you need to be the one to say, hey, actually, the pace that I'm working right now is not something that I can keep doing. Which is really hard. And that's why you're going to attend the February session about hard conversations, because you deserve it. There's no reason that any of us should be like running around half dead, burnt out because we're trying to make someone else's life run well, right? If you can keep your boss's house spotless, running well, kids are happy, clean, whatever, and then you come home and like your house is a wreck, you don't have any clean laundry, you're either ordering Uber Eats for the 10th time, or you're just like, I'm having sleep for dinner, which I have done that recently. I'm like, nope, just going to bed. I'm too tired. Here's some grapes. Good night. And then I caught myself and I was like, stop this, Ashley. Like, you have to make time to take care of yourself, right?
Yes.
But you can have those conversations with your bosses, and they're important conversations to have, because if your boss says, so figure it out, then you're like, oh, that's when you quit an unsustainable job, when you get that kind of response. But more often than not, your boss will say, I'm so sorry, I didn't even realize that. Here are some things that we can change. You can, it could be something as simple as like coming 15 minutes later. One of my jobs, I used to work 8 to 6, and they were very big on getting their kids dressed and making their breakfast. So I just would come and watch the kids eat breakfast for 30 minutes. And I'm like, and I did it for like almost 2 years. And I was like, okay, this is stupid, because also I just like, that was what was presented to me. This is the time we need you to work. So I'm like, okay, well, this is when I come to work. But after like the first year, I'm like, oh, this is annoying. And then I'm like, okay, but you're the only one annoyed by the situation. So it's your job to say something.
Right.
And I was like, can we shift my schedule 8:30 to 6:30? Because it just feels like you guys are like, because this was when I was in DC and they would metro home. So they were always rushing to get on the train, and like they'd be a little bit late. And I'm like, on average, I'm getting off at 6:10 anyway. So can I come at 8:30 and leave at 6:30, and you guys aren't breaking your neck on the metro? I get 30 extra minutes in the morning. And they're like, yeah, that's fine. And I could have asked that like 5 months in, but I didn't. I waited so long. And it was like, and I was so nervous. I practiced the conversation, all that. And it was like such a nothing thing for them. So I just like, I mean, and some unsustainable things are very, like much bigger than that, right? But I use that as an example to say it, like, just say it. Like, they really might not care, And I understand like that's easier said than done. So I'm like a big role play it with a friend, like talk it out. I love to do role plays with people because I always like give them the meanest response. And then they're like, oh my God. I'm like, right, because they're not going to say that. So you're already prepared. And they're like, You're right. You're right. But if you want a nice role play, I'm also happy to do that. Okay. So the other big part of sustainability is pay. Like that's just realistic. And right now, the nanny market is so weird because the economy is trash. And there are some people who will be able to weather this economic storm and not make any changes. But realistically, some people are hanging on by a thread. And by that, I mean our employers. And also, I mean, maybe some of us, right? Like, money is hard to come by for everyone, but your boss's finances are not your responsibility. The only responsibility that you have any concern about is whether your check clears, and their responsibility is to tell you when it's time, hey, we cannot pay you anymore. And the right thing to do is to be, give the nanny a good amount of lead time so they can look for a new job. But we know that that's not always the case, right? So when you go into these interviews and you're looking for new positions, when they ask you your rate, don't give them a rate based on what you think that they're willing to pay. You need to tell them a rate that allows you to have money for the things you need to have. And the things you need to have are not just a roof over your head, clothes on your back, and food in your belly. Like, I mean, yes, technically that is all you need. But we are also people, especially when you do caring work, you get run down really easily. And I'm not saying do self-care like, oh, you have to have enough money to get a massage every week or anything like that. But like little treats matter. And I do know people, not just nannies, people in general right now that like a $5 coffee is not a sustainable little treat right now. And, again, hopefully this is not going to be our economic situation forever, but it might be, right? Like it might be for a while. And you do not owe anyone the generosity of asking them for less money than you need to survive. Because whether it's just you by yourself or you are supporting a spouse or children, at the end of the day, you need your money to get done what you need to get done. And I know that it's hard, especially again with the nanny market. It's very competitive. And we know that there are people who are taking jobs for so little money. I see it in the Facebook groups all the time. They're like, we want somebody to work 55 hours a week for $20 an hour. And I'm like, what? And by the time I get done reading it, I'm like, what kind of idiot would apply for that job? And they have 15 responses. And I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have called them idiots, but there are a lot of, because people need money and they need jobs. And this is like hard to say for, if you were in a position where you're looking for a job to just be like, wait on it, it will come. But you are like everyone in this call is the kind of nanny who works on being a good nanny, who is a professional, who this is their career. Like you don't just take the first job if you worked in corporate, you apply for jobs that are at your caliber and you will find your match, which is why it's important to have savings and all those things so you don't have to take the first job, because not a single person who has spoken on this call should be taking a job that's $20 an hour. Not like we literally have probably close to a century's worth of work between 8 people here. We're not taking $20 an hour jobs for 2 reasons. A, you can't survive off that. And B, every time you take a $20 job, you teach a parent and 3 of their friends that it's okay to hire a nanny for $20, right? So you're not just hurting yourself, you're hurting the industry. Hold on. Carly had a comment. Yes, waited 6 months for the job I have now. Don't settle. Yes, because, and now look, Carly's been there 5 years, growing with the family. They're on their 3rd baby. And I mean, again, if that's not what you're looking for, that's fine. But it feels like everyone here is looking for that.
The other way to go that has been my reality, which is the thing that is the hardest about this career, which is now I'm losing the term, job insecurity, basically.
Yeah.
It's also kind of been a blessing. If I don't like a situation, I know it's going to change pretty quickly, as opposed to being, in a job where I'm stuck there for however many years. But
that's fair, especially here. Like we've talked about that.
Doesn't apply. Sorry, that doesn't apply to pay. I will not.
No.
Crappy. But if I don't get along great, or the kids are hard or whatever, I know that it's not going to last that long.
Yeah. April, were you going to say something?
Yes. We were talking a minute ago about being overworked and getting burnt out, and something that has just happened to me for the first time this year that my therapist had to help me figure out why I was suddenly so depressed, is because I was underworked. And I know people are like, huh? But for example, the mom I was with at that time, if she said give her organic strawberries for her snack with cheese that's imported from Europe. And then I looked at the organic strawberries and they look kind of sketchy. So I decided to go with, organic blueberries or blackberries. There would have to be a conversation. Like we would have to sit down and talk about why I made that choice. And I'm like, okay, I have years of experience and education and all of that. But so many of those things happened over and over and over again. And then it just sort of became where she was making like schedules that had scripts. Like, this is what I want you to say to her as you're doing this activity that I have
Girl,
planned out for
bye.
you.
No.
So then, when I was talking to my therapist about it, and I was like, I have no idea why I'm so sad, why I'm so depressed all of a sudden. She said, well, how much further are you going to shrink yourself? Like, how much smaller are
Mm.
you going to allow yourself to be on this job? Um, and that just sort of made me think, I'm being underworked, I'm being underused. She could hire a 16-year-old to come in and do exactly what she is telling me to do constantly. So it was a difficult decision, and I let it fester too long. Um, and even though I did bring it up in a couple of conversations, it just wasn't coming through. So now I am interviewing for new jobs. But yeah,
One of the
so
one of the things they say is one of the biggest factors to whether you have, a healthy work environment is whether or not you have agency over
yeah,
Mhm.
decisions that you need to make on
yeah,
a daily basis. And if
yeah,
you have
Yeah.
a managing parent, that's,
yeah.
you have none.
Ugh.
And on one of the like national or international Facebook groups, when it first was happening, and I would post, has this ever happened to you? How did you deal with it? There were several nannies who would be like, I would love that. I would love to be told exactly what to do, not have to make any decisions. It's her child, all of that stuff. So I'm like, okay, so y'all would be good for her, but I am not. I need to find
Yeah.
a family who's more in line with what I want to do.
Yeah. I would struggle with that. Because I'm not new to this, right? I need you to have a certain level of trust that I'm never going to do something that's going to harm your child. I'm never going to do something that oversteps a boundary without asking you. And obviously that trust grows, which was a big um like that was a big learning curve for me after I left my long-term job because I'd been there for 13 years. There was nothing that like it was nothing to do anything. Like there was no asking. There was like, we're going to Paris. Bye. We're leaving the kid with you. Like you want to take her on a trip by yourself? Go. So having to walk that back and start over was really hard. And I had a job after that job, and then I moved here. So having done it twice past my long-term job has been really tricky, but also advocating for yourself. And I really like the way you said your therapist said that is like, how much are you going to shrink yourself? Because it is sort of an intricate dance, right? Especially at the beginning. You don't want to come off as a know it all because it is their kid. But part of the reason I know you hired me is because I have 5 years, 10 years, 20 years of experience. So if you didn't want someone who can bring that level of experience to the table, you should have hired a 16-year-old or someone who could just follow a script because I am in a space in my career now that I need to be respected for my expertise and not just my labor. And if you don't want to like all of my like my website and my interview, my resume all has language about teamwork because yes, I am your employee, but we are a team helping to raise your kid. And obviously you guys make final decisions, but for me, I felt like that has helped weed out more of the micromanaging parents because I'm very like not forceful, but I use a lot of we language from the beginning, like little green flags to me that maybe are red flags to some of the parents, like, oh, we don't want her like in our decision making process in our business, whatever, to that level. And that's fine because I know they wouldn't be happy with me and I wouldn't be happy working there. But I think that that's a really good note. Like, do not shrink yourself because you know so much more than not in a mean way, but you know so much more than most parents because you have seen so many different kids. Even if you meet a parent that has 3 or 4 kids, they've only had their own 3 or 4 kids. And I've had, 10 2-year-olds or, whatever the numbers are. And I think that it's really important to not shrink yourself and not be a know-it-all, of course, but say, no, here are experiences that I've had with other people. Let's talk about what this could look like. So I do think that's really important. I have a couple other things about pay that I just wanted to talk about quickly too. So yes, do not undercharge. Who cares what you think they can pay? You tell them what you want to be paid and they make their own choice. You need to ask for raises. It's hard. The only reason I can say with my whole chest now, I am very good at asking for raises, and it is only because in my long-term nanny share, I worked for 4 attorneys. So every time we wanted to have like a conversation, it was like the 4 attorneys across the table from me. And it was like so intimidating. And now looking back, they were never going to be mean about it, but I'm like, these are people who negotiate for a living. And here I am like, yes, hello, I think I've been doing a good job. So can I please have a little more money? And, by the end, I'm like, okay, guys, look, we've been in this for 11 years now. I need a raise, right? But like that obviously comes from being with the family for a long time. So what I always recommend to people, because it's hard to I find that nannies find it hard to quantify how much money they should get. They'll just pull an arbitrary number like, it's been a year, I deserve an extra dollar, or, they had a baby. So, and the baby raise thing is also very interesting because some people will be like, I should get an extra $5 for a baby. And maybe you should. I don't know what your job looks like, but you have to like think of it long term and like what that looks like for a parent's budget and can they afford, because $5 is a big jump. And if for me, because I like a long-term family, I would calculate what I need and ask for a raise that is within that range because I want to stay with them. I don't want them to run out of money because I wanted an extra $5 for a year, right? So there are a lot of parts that go into asking for a raise, depending on why you're asking for it. If it's just your like yearly anniversary or there have been big changes, maybe your kid goes to school a couple days a week, so now you're also doing family assistant work. Side note on that, do not let your bosses tell you, oh, well, we're just going to pay you the same because they won't be here. No, you're also asking me to do work that I never did before. So you're going to pay me extra for that. And you just have to say that to them. Like, say it nicely, but say, no, these are different responsibilities that I have that are in addition. Also, it's like whenever parents send their kids to school, they forget that children get sick all the time, that school's closed, that there are holidays. I'm like, you think I'm never going to see this kid on Tuesday and Thursday ever again? What are you talking about? That's not realistic. So you need to be compensated for those additional responsibilities that have nothing to do with the kid being in school 2 days a week or however many days a week. So I typically tell nannies to start by asking for what the equivalent of the yearly cost of living adjustment is, which you can find on the Social Security Administration website. I think I left this tab open so I could put it in the chat. Hold on, did I do that? Oh, I didn't.
It's okay.
Oh, no, here it is. Aha, I did. Okay, so this one, it just takes you to where's my Zoom? It takes you to the cost of living website. So for 2026, it's 0.28. And so you would just multiply what you're making right now by that 0.28, and that would be your cost of living increase. And it's especially important to ask for these increases right now because inflation is out of control. And we were paying like $9 for a dozen eggs 2 months ago. Okay. So like, is 0.28% a lot of money? No, but it is. People who live on Social Security are given that bump. So you as a working person also deserve at least that much money. And I always say start there because it's something that you can send them a government website and say, this is something that's happening for many people across the country. So it's not just you arbitrarily coming up with numbers. So like the last time I asked for a raise, I said, I want this percent, and I gave them the percentage for whatever the COLA was, plus an additional percent or an additional like percentage number. And I also think that is helpful for them to see like, I'm not asking you for a 30% raise. This is literally 3%, 5%, whatever it is, um, because this is what I've been doing. And this is your time to like gas yourself up, right? Say, I've noticed that we've had really successful potty training. We have such a good school after school routine, or, we've done such a good job with baby led weaning. And I think that those things reflect how well I've been working for your family. And I think that that is, worth a 2% raise or whatever you want to ask for.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is they can say no, right? But the answer will always be no if you don't ask.
Exactly.
Like it's just, and it's so hard. It really is. Even with all of my like negotiating power experience, I'm still a little bit like, I always leave it till the end. I talk about all the things I want to talk about in our review. And then I'm like, okay, and by the way, let's talk about money. But you can't sustainably be at a job without ever getting a raise. I've met people who are like, oh, I've never had a raise. What do you mean? You just told me you've worked for this family for 5 years. Because the way inflation works, not even just the crazy inflation we're having now, but in general, you are effectively making less money than when you got hired because the entire world is more expensive. You would not just throw money away. So you can't leave it on the table. You have to ask. Um, so doing that is very important because go ahead, Ellie.
I think a big help is when you put it on you write it down in your contract that every year you should get a raise according to the inflation. Like so that will help you the uncomfortable conversation with your bosses. I didn't have that problem, thank God, because I was so ignorant for years and years that I had like really really nice bosses that they always gave me a raise, but I never asked for a raise unless I needed like a big raise or, like I could not leave with what they were paying me. I will say something and that the answer will be probably no, and I will have to leave the job. But since I started using contracts, it helps me so much that I don't have to worry about because they know it's written, it's written somewhere that you need a raise every year. And like, I mean, if you're doing more work or extra kid, that's another conversation. But
right.
I think it will help us all to have an agreement or a contract or whatever you want to call it written down that every year let's like talk about money or just give me the raise. I don't need to ask you about it.
Right.
Mine just says annual cost of living raise of 3%.
There you go. Yeah, mine too.
Yeah.
But yeah, like a lot of people don't know, and I didn't know I had to ask
Right.
for a raise every year. They were I was like, oh my gosh, you're the best. And they were getting these big raises, right? They were giving me like probably
right.
like 1% of what they were getting, but
Right.
I was so ignorant. So, and I was so grateful. I was like doing well, but so I think that's a big help if you don't want to have a conversation every year about money, to have it in the contract. So because it's uncomfortable for both family and us to have that conversation. I don't know. I don't like talking about money, but it has to
Right.
be part of our job. So I don't know.
It's
The
true. It
way
is hard. And having it in your contract is helpful. If you don't have it in your contract, you can always have a conversation about adding it to your contract.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not going to do that, you really do just because a lot of what I think is helpful as a career nanny is, as we've talked about, is treating it like a profession, right? And so as a professional, you have the right at least once a year to sit down and say, hey, let's evaluate my work. Let's see how you feel about it. Are there and you have to have thick skin, right? A review and evaluation isn't only the good things you're doing. Because
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, I always say like, oh, we're human, so are our bosses. And I've had a lot of non-confrontational bosses in my life. And then we've sat down at a, evaluation, review, whatever. And they say something, and I'm like, why wouldn't you have ever told me that was bothering you? Like it's such a small, nothing thing. But I like, so they have those moments too, where it's like, well, if you had just told me, I would have known, right? But all of that is a part of being a professional, getting positive feedback, getting negative feedback, having open conversations about the money you're making, because this is your job. Like, and everyone always has like one of those funny anecdotal stories where their kid is like, Ashley, when are you going to get a real job? When are you going to just stop playing with me? And you're like, girl, this is my whole career. But they don't know, right? Because you're in this position that even if you're not at a job where like, some people are like, oh, we're family. I'm not really one of those people. Depending on how long I've been with like a family, we get there, but that's like not my MO. I don't want to be friends with my boss. I don't want to like, because that just makes things muddy, that there are expectations on both sides sometimes that can become really tricky when you're like, oh, we're like family. No, because we wouldn't know each other if I hadn't responded to an ad for a job. So I am your employee. And so in those moments, especially with reviews and pay and raises, like treat it as such. Like it's not the same as if I was like, hey Maya, can you give me some extra money? Like she doesn't owe me that. But like your bosses owe it to you, not necessarily to give you more money, but they owe it to you to take a good look at the work that you're doing and have a conversation with you about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also going to put another thing in the chat. Is this? No, that's not what I'm putting in the chat. JK, hold on. I had all these tabs open and then I started using my computer. What a goofball. This is a link to a blog post on our website about boundaries and burnout and like how to stay energized. Because I didn't realize it was almost 9 o'clock. So we're gonna wrap this up. I didn't realize it was so late. We've been having such good conversations. But there's a lot of good information in here about recognizing burnout, because I do think that sometimes, we're in a space right now where like life is just kind of hard for everybody. So I think that those early burnout signs, people don't realize like, oh, I'm tired. And it's like, oh, well, everyone's tired. But it's like, if you can't do anything except get in your bed every single night, or you just dread going to work every day, that's not just regular, like, oh, I'm in a bad mood. Like, you might be getting burnt out. And this blog post has some ways to recognize it, ways to try to prevent it. You'll see I write a lot about taking breaks. I am a big proponent of taking breaks. And I can own that it's probably because in like a month and a half, I'll be 40. So I'm like finally starting to get a little bit tired. I'm like, girl, I gotta sit down sometimes. I remember I used to just fold the laundry standing up all the time. And then one day I sat down at the table and did it. And I was like, why haven't I been doing this the whole time? It like never occurred to me. But I think like my age is starting to catch up with me a little bit. So I'm always like, if I want to continue to do this work as I get older, like I have to do it in ways that feel sustainable to me, right? Like, and the biggest way right now that I'm feeling like I have to care for myself is taking breaks, I love my nanny kids, but they are a lot. They have very big personalities. And if I can be candid, they are not really personalities that my bosses are the best at handling. So there's like a lot of chaos sometimes. So sometimes I come home from work like just drained. And I'm like, I'm so glad I live alone. I could not talk to another human. Like I have my radio presets. I still listen to the actual radio in my car. And one of them is like, I just like have never changed the station from when I lived in DC. So it's just like static. And sometimes I'm like so overdone on the way home. I just listen to the static. Like I don't want to hear any sounds. I just listen to static. And I'm like, okay, you need a little bit of extra rest. And like Maya and a couple other people know, I also just like do too much. Like I'm always like traveling on the weekends and like I'm always gone and I'm always like planning events. So some of that burnout is honestly on me. It's not all just work burnout, but having a job that allows you to do other things that you love doing without being burnt out is also really important. So you really do have to balance that. Work-life balance is a very real thing. So check out that blog post if you'd like. Um, and then I just have this last little, I have my notes spread out all over my couch. Hold on, sorry. I need a desk, y'all.
I think so. I don't know how you do it with no desk.
I
I'll be
know.
like just like on my phone. If I don't sit on the desk, I don't work. No, I'm not.
I work, I have like I have an island that I work at sometimes,
Oh
or
yeah.
I go down to like the club room in my apartment and that I'm like, okay, I'm like away from my house. I do the work. It's like the only time I ever use my stupid amenities here because I'm always at work. Or we use the amenities when we have book club, right, Maya?
Yeah.
I would love to invite all of you to come to book club on December 3rd,
Third. Second.
3rd,
Second.
2nd. I'll post the event. It's either the 3rd or the 2nd. We're not reading a child development book. I got some feedback that we need to do like one non-serious book every couple books. So we are reading the Adventure Nannies book. It's a very quick read. It's like 9 or 10 stories from different nannies. It's been really interesting. I just finished the one about the girl that was in South America, and her bosses were treating her very badly. But they're like firsthand accounts, and it's just like fun to read. And Adventure Nannies, if you're not familiar with them, they have like a lot of really high profile jobs. So for some people, it's like very aspirational, like, ooh, I want to read these stories about people who are working for rich and famous people. Those are never the people I want to work for. But I know lots of nannies really aspire to work for families like that. So it's just like a fun read. And I can be honest, I didn't even finish our last book for book club. I got through most of it, but I didn't finish it. But we always have good conversation about the book anyway. So if you want to come. Maya's I don't even know if we're going to really have like a book leader. I think we're just going to talk about what stories we like from the book from this one. It's just like a nice, easy
Well,
holiday one.
a few of us read two books this time around, so we're going to talk about the fictional one that we read to the
Oh, you guys did read it?
yeah.
I'm so behind.
I did the audiobook, but yeah. What's it called?
Oh,
Such
you
a
know
fun
what? I
age.
should do that.
Such a fun age. It's really
Such
good.
a
You
fun age.
should check it out. It's
Okay.
not really that much about nannies. It's more about class, I think, and I don't know. But it's good.
I should get another audiobook going. We have a bunch of family coming to visit the house for Thanksgiving, so I need to be distracted.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, come to book club. I can't remember why I was advertising book club, but come to it. Oh, because I never use my apartment amenities
Right.
except for book club.
Right.
But we have a fire pit and it's very nice. So our last section is just a little bit about the phases of your nanny career. Here we go. I'm with it now. Okay, now you do this. This is my other slide that I had to show. But what did I do? Share screen first, then present. Okay, hold on. I love that I'm recording this and it's just gonna record me fumbling through my Zoom. Okay. Okay, so career nanny phases. I didn't break them up into years because I do think that that can be kind of misleading. So I have the first phase of your career is getting started, right? Like if you wanted to put some years on it, I'd say like maybe 0 to 3 years. And please give me feedback if you have thoughts about what these years should be, but I don't know that it matters that much. And this is kind of where you're building your foundational skills. Maybe you have babysitting skills or you've come from a classroom, but you haven't, because I do think that there are a lot of really transferable skills from teaching to being a nanny, but it is a very, very different career. And not everyone who was a good early childhood teacher is a good nanny because it's a very personal job. And sometimes people don't like that. And that's when you're gaining confidence with different age groups. You're figuring out if there's a particular age group that you really like and you want to specialize in. And you're starting to understand like your preferences about having a nanny job. Like maybe in these first couple of years of your career is where you're learning that you never want to work for work from home parents. Or some people love working for work from home parents. I don't understand those people, but it's fine. Then you're sort of in the section of building stability, right? You have more experience under your belt. You can ask for a little bit more money. You can be a little bit more selective about the jobs you're choosing. And this is the time when you're sort of learning to refine your boundaries, right? Because I feel like in the getting started stage, I don't know if everyone was like this. This is like a lot of like, yes, all the time. Like, oh, can you stay late? Can you do this? Can you babysit on the weekends? I'm like, yeah, I'll do it all. And in some ways, there's value to that, right? Because you learn what your capacity is. Like, I have a very strong boundary that unless it's like an emergency or like they're in a really tight spot, I don't babysit the kids that I nanny for. I need to not see you a little bit. I need to be out of your house a little bit. So no, I don't come over on Saturday nights to babysit my nanny kids. And there's nothing wrong with it if you do, but like I learned that boundary from being in this career for a long time, right? Um, so you're learning those kinds of boundaries and like figuring out what kind of caregiver you are, right? Maybe you've become interested in Montessori, so you want to take some classes about that and incorporate that into your nannying, routine. Um, so this is sort of the time that you're defining and building your stable career, right? Like this is the kind of work that I want to do day in and day out, and you're starting to take shape with that. And you're starting to prioritize like the long-term stability of it. Like maybe this is when you're saying, oh, I do like to be with a family for 2 or 3 years, rather than like being with families that are going to put their, have kids on a wait list spot for daycare or something like that. Then the next phase I would say is like, this is like where you're kind of owning your expertise. And this is when you're like, probably 10 plus years, maybe less, maybe 7 plus years, depending on how many jobs you've had and what kinds of experiences you've had. And you have a lot of confidence and you can lead with professionalism. And I feel like I say professionalism, blah, 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 all the time when I'm talking about career nannies, because that is part of what sets us apart from all the nannies on Facebook, right? Like you have a personal relationship with the people that you work with. And it doesn't mean that you can't ask them for things or, say, I don't feel well, I need to be at 50% today, or like, hey, I really need some time off. But I see too many stories and too many posts about nannies that are like, well, I wanted this thing. I asked my bosses for money. I asked this. And you're like, what? You would never. And I know that I make this comparison a lot, but I do think that it is important to make the comparison between nannying and corporate life. I am well aware that there are differences, but I think that you have to come at it like you're at a corporate job. You would never go to your boss and say, oh, my car broke down. Can you give me $1,000? And maybe you do have a relationship like that with your bosses that is probably built over time. But I think that there are some pockets of lack of professionalism that I see, especially here, that I really I want to like educate out of our nanny community. So they're not, because I feel like when you get to that sort of like personal relationship, personal favors kind of thing, it just muddies the water too much. And then your bosses stop treating you like a professional. But anyway, that's like my little soapbox about professionalism. In this phase, you could be mentoring others. And that doesn't mean you're setting up like a formal mentorship, but like this is probably around the stage of your career where you realize a lot of nannies are asking you, like, have you ever dealt with this? Like, how would you do this? I need to talk to my boss about this. What do you think? And like lean into that. Like, obviously, you say to everyone, take my advice with a grain of salt. This is what works for me. But, take pride in that. Like, you've worked really hard to get to a place in your career where others lean on you. And that's a really, cool feeling. You're setting your clear expectations from day one. You have it in your contract that you get a 3% cost of living raise. You are saying, I need XYZ from the beginning. And you're upfront and confident about those things when you're interviewing and when you're meeting families and when you're starting to work with them. And you are focused on jobs that align with what you want and what you need. And you are really interested in like family match, right? Especially if you're looking for a long-term job. Because I have definitely had jobs in my career where I have been at an interview and been like, oh my God, this is probably going to suck. But I take the job anyway. And, bad choice, right? But like now I know I wouldn't do it anymore. But at this phase of my career, I am so keyed in on being well matched with a family. Like we have to have the same energy. It was like April was saying, you don't want to be with someone who's micromanaging you and diminishing you because you do have expertise. Like at this stage of your career, you're cutting all that out, right? And then the final phase is the what's next phase. And that can look like a lot of things for people, right? Some people, that is, how am I leveling up my nanny career specifically? Other people, do you guys need to keep seeing this chart? I always feel weird when I can't see you. I'm just going to turn that off. There we go. Um, okay. Well, now I lost my chart. Hold on. Where am I? Okay. Um, that's when, so maybe you're looking to level up your nanny career specifically. You're going to conferences, you're going to, training days, and you're like really honing in on, maybe you're looking at a specialty. Maybe you want to become RISE certified. Maybe you want to do a full Montessori certification that you're specifically using for nannying, and you're, promoting yourself as a Montessori nanny, or looking at what's next. A lot of people make pivots that are still within like child related industries. So maybe you're looking to be an NCS or a sleep trainer or a doula or a postpartum doula. And a lot of those skills can be transferable. And maybe you just need, a lot of times people also just want a break from nannying. And because it can be hard, right? Like people burn out. This is a very particular type of work. And having those certifications allows you to pivot out for a little while, but you're not like, oh, I left nannying for 5 years to, I don't know, build websites. So then when you're trying to come back in the career, it's like, well, what have you been doing for 5 years? When's the last time you held a baby? So pivoting to something like birth work or NCS work and things like that allow you to sort of still be within the realm of childcare, but give yourself a little breathing room from being a nanny. And then you can also level up in other ways. You can teach, you can speak, you can, speak at conferences. You have a workshop you want to do for National Nanny Connection, let me know. We can talk about it. But there are lots of ways, because one of the things that's really important about the sort of what's next phase of your career is if this is what you are going to do long term. And I think this is with any career, you're like staring down a lot of years. And maybe you're like thinking about this while you're sitting on the playroom floor building this tower for like the 900th time. And you're like, well, can I do this for another 15 years? Especially if you've already been doing it for 15, 20 years. And you're like, what can I do that allows me to still do the work that I love, but still be stimulated and challenged enough that I'm going to be happy in the long run? So I wanted to like clarify that, because I don't always want people to think that the what's next phase means you have to leave nannying, but it's either, pivoting to something adjacent or figuring out how to make your nanny career stimulating enough that you want to keep doing it. And I will just like always beat the education drum. Like I am never more like hyped up about my job than when I come back from a professional development conference. Like when I got back from INA this year, I was like, I have 10,000 things I want to do. And I felt like Ellie, like you can't do them all right now. You can just do one at a time. But I'm like, but I learned about this and I want to do this. And it just, having something that can like keep your spark going is going to matter, because when you are like hitting that burnout, like your spark is very low, your bosses know, but more importantly, your kids know. Your kids respond to you differently because you're responding to them differently. Because, I've had during COVID, I got really burnt out because all of my kids were in school before COVID started. So I was really only working like 12 hours a day. And it was glorious. And then they're like, oh, all the schools are closing. The kids are coming home. You need to work 40 hours a week. And I'm like, I haven't done that in years. What do you mean? And I just like started to hit that low. And one of the ways that I could tell is, one of my favorite things about having like slightly older kids is driving them places, because kids just have the craziest, best conversations in the car. And they'll be like, hey, Ashley, blah, 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 blah. And I remember we were going to the store one day, which was honestly a big deal because DC was very locked down during COVID. So the fact that we were even out of the house was like a big deal. And they were trying to talk to me while I was driving. And I was just like, I don't care. I didn't say this, obviously, but in my brain, I was like, I don't care. Like, I just was so like burnt out in that moment. And I was like, they don't deserve that from me. They deserve the exact same energy of like, oh my gosh, tell me, that I have for them every single day. Like, and that's not their fault. So like, I need to do what I need to do for myself to stay motivated, to stay, excited about the job, because that is the job. Like nobody's perfect. Nobody's going to be 100% every single day. But like, these are little people, whether they're 6 months old or 12 years old, who are looking to get something from you, not in like I want to get something from you, but like they need you. And it's really hard to give that if you don't care about your work. And learning new strategies and being able to have even one new idea every so often, like really can reinvigorate you. So, again, doing what's next is not always doing something else, but it's really finding ways to keep that spark going. And I think that that's really important. If any of you want to come to the INA conference, I'll be there. I registered. They have a payment plan because honestly, it was very expensive, which brings me back to pay. When you're negotiating your contract, put in the professional development stipends. I know a lot of nannies make good money, but conferences are expensive. And you got to get there and you got to stay there and you got to pay for the conference. And maybe you want to have fun while you're there. Maybe they can't cover the whole thing, but even a yearly stipend of $500 in the grand scheme of things is not that much money for them, but makes a big difference for you that can then, in the long run, make a difference for their family because you come back energized, excited, and you're bringing ideas like I think was it last year? Maybe last year at Nanny Palooza, they had a session about picky eaters. And I remember being in the session, like just rapid fire texting my boss. I'm like, I will make more sense of this later, but here are things we need to try with Noah. Because we had just been like hitting a wall with her. And I've had a lot of picky eaters, but she was a very particular kind of picky eater. And I was like, oh my God. And from all those ideas I sent her, one of them worked. Literally one. It was one food. And I was like, we have one more food. And in that moment, it just felt worth it because it gave me some hope that every single day wouldn't be like, we all just want to cry when it's time for her to eat because it's such a frustrating moment. So you do have to like find those little pockets that keep your spark going. I am so sorry that this was so long, guys. I had no idea. I do have time, like a little bit of time for Q&A. I had Ellie, well, but now I feel silly being like, oh, I have these career nannies when it's literally just a group of career nannies. So if anybody just like wants to ask a question, we can all answer them for each other if you want. Also, we don't have to do the Q&A if you just don't have any questions. No pressure.
I just want to say thank you so much for doing this, Ashley, for everything that you do. All of these things that you arrange makes my quality of life as a nanny so much better. I'm so
Thank
grateful for
you.
you. I really
I'm
honestly.
also like, can I also just say thank you? I genuinely thought this call was going to be like me, Ellie, and Maya because we were the panel, and then like one or two other people because attendance for stuff in Nashville is all over the place. When we did our 1 year anniversary, we had like 40 people there. And then our next event had like 5 people. And I was like, okay, it's fine. So I am just so grateful that you guys showed up for this. Was it helpful that it was on Zoom? People don't like to leave their house. That's feedback that I got.
Yeah.
I like to go places, but
I
people
like
are like,
to go.
no. Yeah,
like
but
both.
when I was at Nanny Palooza, they were like, do more Zoom events. And I'm like, I've done 0 Zoom events, but I don't know. This feels good, guys. People showed up. And I'm like, I really appreciate you because we've all worked all day for the most part. Like, so I hope this felt valuable and helpful. I'm really glad you guys came.
It's just good to see faces too and hear
Yeah.
voices and have, just have a conversation. It's always good. I'll always attend if I can.
Yes. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
Also, if you guys ever have like thoughts about workshops you want to have, topics you want to cover, please always send them to me. Sometimes I'm like a little slow to respond to DMs, but they're there and I always eventually respond to them. So if you just think of something I got Facebook, Instagram, you can email me. I'm old, so I like email, but people are like, that's not convenient. I don't know, it's on my phone like an app, so that's how I use it. But however you want to reach me, please, because I don't want to put on things that people aren't interested in. Like the whole point of this is that I want us to come together as a community and grow together. And if there are specific things that people want, I want to figure out how to put them on. So please.
No, the same way I appreciate everybody that shows up and it's like I see that it's like there's more people than just us three all the time. But
Yes.
and it's like I want to get to know more nannies, like I'm very bad with names and faces, but I'm always at the park, always like everywhere I go. I'm like, hey, you want to join a group? Or like, look, you should follow these people on Instagram and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I love it. And I haven't met April and Sarah. I think I've seen Sarah before I haven't seen
Were
Rhonda.
you at that little brunch we had where
Which one?
just a few weeks ago, or maybe it's been a couple months. I don't know.
You
That
look
No,
good
it
as
Nancy.
was when
time.
I don't
no,
know.
Ellie
It's
didn't
fine.
go because she was party last night before.
Oh,
What?
Oh, when we went to Fido.
I know.
yes,
Yeah.
Also,
yes, yes.
if you haven't been to one of our Nanny Cafe things, you should come. It's really
Oh yeah,
we
that
just pick a
day.
coffee
Oh yeah,
shop
yeah, yeah.
and sit and drink coffee and hang out, and it's really nice.
But I
Yeah,
really like Zoom too. I really like
yeah.
Zoom because
Yeah,
I
this
can
was
come
good.
home and just like, um, tell my husband, no, I need a few, so I can talk to the nannies or I don't
Yeah.
know, like learn something. I'm looking forward to the hard conversation talk.
Hmm.
And I tell the nannies that you have to learn how to speak up, even if it's your second language, because it's really hard for us when you have a second language. It's hard to put the words together and how to, not sound really like a 2-year-old talking to an adult, because
Right.
that's how I felt for years, not being able to. I was like afraid to talk to them because I was like, how are they're gonna understand what I'm coming from? They're gonna see the value. They're gonna judge my accent, and now I'm like, I wasted so much time, and I encourage everybody, even if there is in their own language, just speak out and learn from it. If it doesn't come out right, it's just learn from it. So the next talk, I'm gonna be like peeking, their ass to come over to the Zoom.
Yeah.
They need to learn. They all need to learn, and it's free.
Hmm.
Right.
I pay for that. I pay for a lot of things, how to make your contract, how to have conversations, how to potty train, how to do things. And it's like
It's like a big
free.
group therapy session. Like
Yes. I
you
feel
don't have
like
to
all
pay
of our
for it.
events, at least
Oh,
part of it
They
is like a group
totally are.
therapy session,
and I like
which
that
Absolutely.
I love.
April brought up that she talks to a therapist because I talk to a therapist too. And it's like, okay, I'm not the only crazy. I don't care
Mhm.
saying that I
Oh
talk
my
to a
gosh, the
therapist.
way that I used to
I'm not
have to
saying that you're
spend so
crazy,
much
April,
time.
but
Yeah.
it's
I
just
mean,
like
I'm on
very
medication, and
healthy.
I'll admit that. And
We
see a
all have
therapist.
issues. I,
It's
for
very
a little
healthy.
while, it is like I've had lots of different therapists, and for a very specific time in my career, I chose a very particular therapist that I knew. I don't even know how to explain it. Like treated the moms that I was working with, not specifically the people I was working for, but
Oh.
like that type of person was
Type
her
of people.
client. And I was like, I need help navigating these things. Not, I'm
Mhm.
not asking you to like breach people's trust or anything,
Yeah, that's
but I
smart
spent a
though.
solid 6 months with that therapist. And I was like, okay, I mean, I already knew we were different people, but I'm like, oh, we are different people. But the way that those 6 months with that specific therapist, like, and I was mostly just talking about work stuff, was like so transformative. It was
Wow.
like
Mhm.
it
Like
was
that's
very strategic.
some of the things that the coach that was teaching me about having hard conversations was teaching me about how to read people and how to
Mm-hmm.
like present yourself according to if it's like a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, a therapist, or like how
Mm-hmm.
to speak to them. And I'm like, I have to be a therapist. I have to learn so much to talk to these people.
Well, and
So
that's what I was going to say. That's a skill. You went to
yeah,
someone to learn how to have the skill of reading people so you can perform well at your job. And like
yeah.
bringing that back to the beginning of this conversation, like there are so many invisible skills that we carry that make
Mhm.
us good at our job. So when we are asking for more money and we are asking to be treated like professionals and all of those things, remember that you sought someone out to figure out how to be a better communicator or how, like, lots of people never do that. And like that
Mhm.
shows your professionalism, you know?
Yeah, but like things like this, I really like. I wasn't on top this week because I wasn't feeling good. But like next for the next one, when is it? When are you planning to have it?
The goal is
And
February. We're trying to like work out schedules.
okay, so like they can come, like they have to listen. They can come and just like put mute and don't show their faces, but listen to
Right.
what's going on. And if they have the courage, they don't need much because we're all, the same.
Right.
Asking good
I'm
questions.
listening and I'm learning new vocabulary too
See, I
in my
love that.
English. So this is awesome. And for me, it's very convenient to do through Zoom because sometimes it's like, well, especially now in winter time when
Yeah.
it's like very early, so you just want to go home and get cozy. So I
Mhm.
appreciate Ashley and all of you for this meeting, and thank you so much. And I
Of
can wait.
course.
I can wait for the next one.
I'm so excited. Okay, just two more things before we wrap up. This one's like a little commercial. And are you guys planning to go to the nanny holiday party that the Washburn agency's putting on? Have you gotten your tickets? Oh, you got okay.
Yes.
Oh, Allison's gonna be there. Okay, good, good. I didn't have a good read on who was coming because Brooke asked me, like, oh, okay, Carly's coming too. Like,
Hey.
I wasn't sure if people were coming because we were going to have an event at the same space for National Nanny Recognition Week, and I just like couldn't. I don't know. Like I said, attendance is all over the place. I couldn't get people to come. So I was really hoping that they were going to get a turnout because the space, I don't know if any of you have ever been to the 615 Collective. It's so cute. I love it. And it's $25. There's gonna be an open bar. There's gonna be food. I'm most excited because it's an event I get to go to and I don't have to
When
work.
is it? When? What
It
day?
is this whatever that
Oh,
Friday is.
December
It's
The
5th.
5th.
Friday.
it's the
Oh,
fifth.
okay.
December 5th.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
So if
bringing
you haven't gotten your tickets, please
I'm
get your
bringing my
tickets.
husband. I think he's going to be the only spouse there. So if anybody wants to bring their husband, please.
No, my
Yeah, they did
husband
say
is
you could
not
bring your
going.
spouse. So yeah, but I think it'll be really fun. And it's just like nice. I mean, that's one of the things I try to do with some of our social events for Nashville Nanny Connection, but like we don't get like celebrated that often. My goal next year is for us to have like in New York, they have like the nanny ball every year.
They
I
have
don't
amazing events there.
I know, but you know what? We're only going to be down for a little while longer. Nashville is going to be one of those places where they're like, "Oh my gosh, Nashville has such good events." We're getting there.
We
We're getting there. We're
petitioned
just
for INNTD for 2027, right?
yes
I mean, Nanny
for
Palooza.
Nanny Palooza. Oh, the way I have been talking to the Knoxville and Chattanooga girls, like, get it together so we can bring Nanny Palooza down here. Because wouldn't that be nice?
Right.
So I think it's just a really good opportunity, like, to have the agency celebrate us. We get to like dress up a little bit. We don't have to do anything. So come because I'm not throwing a holiday party, so we should go to theirs. So that was thing number one. And then this is really goofy, but can we all take a picture so I can post it on our socials? Carly, do you
Yeah.
mind being on the camera?
Let me brush my
Okay, I'm
hair.
gonna take my. Yeah.
Let's see.
I mean, it's not going to be that zoomed in because it's going to be on an Instagram. Oh, wait, but then can I see?
You can
Oh,
put
but
the
that looks.
filter on, please.
Is there a filter on Zoom?
No, but when you put it
Oh,
on
I was like,
Instagram.
I've just been looking crazy this whole time. Okay.
No, I think they have like you can put your eyelashes and I mean your eyebrows, eyelashes and things like
Oh,
that.
so people
filter.
have
You
like
want
very
filter.
fancy Zoom backgrounds. Okay, so how do I do this so it's like not like okay, hold on. Let me just I didn't like think this through. I just thought
I
of an
would
idea.
just like take a
Let me take the
screenshot
retaining
of it.
route.
Oh, like take a screenshot of the that makes more sense.
I'm just saying.
Okay, you know what? I'm gonna do both because I think taking it with my phone is very authentically me, and then I'll see which one looks better because it never occurred to me to take a screenshot. Okay. Great. Okay. What are we gonna just do? Like we're gonna smile. You're just gonna do I don't know. Don't do a thumbs
I
up.
don't know.
That's lame. Don't do that. That's my go-to, but no, you don't have to do that. Okay. We can just smile. I'll count it. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh, I forgot to press the button. Sorry. Okay, sorry. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh, I think that's cute. Okay, now one more, and I'll screenshot it, and then we can be done. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Cute! Yay! Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I was also so nervous about this. So again, I'm really appreciative of you guys showing up. We spent 2 whole hours together, but it was in our house, so it was nice. I hope you guys got something out of this, even though this was just like a bunch of career nannies. Next time, tell the newbie nannies that you know to come to this. But I did record it, so I can send it to them if they need to know.
Okay.
That's all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Ashley.
All right, have a good night. I'll see some of you soon.
Thank you.
Come to book club.
Yes.
All right, good night.
Bye bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.